and executed on at least some. After that, we said would come the bombs and missiles, the soldiers and the tanks.
They're literally fucking running defense on all of their like
occupied region of Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen,
he just declared war. Oh no.
We believe the rest is imminent. Now, over the past few weeks, Russia has called our predictions hysterical.
Yeah, and it's been going on for the last 70.
Russia said we were supplying the world with misinformation. Russia's diplomats even laughed in the face of the human suffering.
Russia cannot feel secure with the threat from Ukraine. We have no other choice but to use the means we are about to announce. I have declared a special military operation.
For all the world to see. So let us be clear. All parties are not culpable here. There's no middle ground.
Bro, not before Elden Ring, dude.
Calling for both sides to de-escalate only gives Russia a pass. Russia is the aggressor here. Russia's attack on Ukraine is tantamount to an attack on the UN and every member state in the chamber tonight. The Security Council is charged with adjudicating threats to peace and security. Russia is bypassing it entirely and taking matters into its own hands. And that undermines the institution. It undermines everyone who participates in it. The United States, Ukraine, its allies and partners across Europe, UN officials, every other member of this Security Council, we have all repeatedly implored Russia to engage at the diplomatic table. Those calls were not heard.
It's kind of silly to have this conversation if,
Russia has brought its people,
Vladimir Putin has declared war, but
and the world to the brink of a conflict that will produce an untold amount of human suffering. I said it in the General Assembly this morning, and I'll say it again tonight. Everyday Russians should be asking themselves right now, how many Russian lives Putin will sacrifice for his cynical ambitions. Responsible members of this Security Council will stand together, and we will stand with Ukraine. And we will do so despite a reckless, irresponsible, permanent member of the Security Council abusing its powers to attack its neighbor and subvert the UN and our international system. This morning in the General Assembly, we saw dozens of leaders from across the globe stand up to defend the UN Charter and Ukraine.
Putin says that the DNR LNR asked for help. He says it by documental agreements. He said special war operation to stop genocide from Kiev on oppression of Donbass. Please, he says he doesn't want to occupy Ukrainian land, only DNR and LNR. Yeah, so what I said earlier today, he's basically declaring war on Ukraine. Demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine is a goal, not occupation, according to Putin. So literally what I fucking said earlier this morning, which is overtaking. I mean, I don't know if any of the chatters have the fucking clip, but overtaking the rest of the Donbass region, DNR and LNR specifically, from overtaking it from the Ukrainian occupied forces, which means like there will be active war between the Ukrainian National Guard and Russian troops, which has probably started at this point, for the record. Breaking, Russian President Vladimir Putin, we decided to launch a special military action aimed at demilitarization and the denazification of Ukraine. No, he said he wants regime change in Ukraine, which would not be limited to Donbass if he wants to achieve that. Okay. Putin said if the Ukrainian army leaves the front line, now no one's going to stop them. It's the South Ossetia model, though then the threat against Ossetians was actually real. I'll be 18 next year. Uh-oh. I'm just fucking with you guys, by the way. I mean, fuck it. I don't even know. I don't fucking even know at this point where, like, what might happen. Because American leadership is insane as well. Oh, let's hear what the fucking UK delegation has to say.
Of 44 million people will bring immense suffering, casualties on both sides, and devastating humanitarian consequences. The members of this Council, the General Assembly, and the Secretary-General have all called this week for respect for the principles of the UN Charter. The world is calling for peace, but Russia is not listening. Mr. President, make no mistake, the UK will not compromise. We will not compromise our commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, our support for peace, prosperity, and the democratic freedom of the people of Ukraine. We will not compromise our commitment to the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Above all, the founding principle of this United Nations, that we live together in peace with one another as good neighbours. Russia's actions are an assault on the Charter. And we will not compromise our commitment to a search for peace. We're here for the second time this week in the Council. My Prime Minister and Foreign and Defence Secretaries have been unsparing in their diplomatic efforts. But we have also announced a significant further sanction step against Russia with our allies, a package targeted against some of the Russian oligarchs, banks, and politicians supporting President Putin. And we will ratchet up.
Looks like it's still only targeted the Donbass region. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the fuck happens. It says special operation into Donbass, which is what my expectation was. But at this point, I don't even fucking know, okay? I said earlier today that they would further expand into Donbass and then potentially overtake. This isn't real. Like, or maybe it is, but we don't know. This is... Don't do this. Don't do this shit, okay? Only confirm news sources. But the take is Mariupol is potentially another fucking area that they can move into so that they can shift the attention away from the entirety of the Donbass region and pull basically what the Donbass region did for Crimea. Okay? That's what I said in the morning. That was my suspicion in the morning, that he would go further in, and potentially take additional areas. And by the way, this will be fucking bloody. This will be very bloody. This is not like Crimea. This is not like the Crimean annexation. This is actually straight up boots on the ground military warfare. 13,000 people died. In the subsequent ongoing battle between separatist forces in Luhansk and Donetsk, and that was over the course of, that was since 2014, and that wasn't actual fucking military. That was proxy battle for the most part. That was like Ukrainian National Guard versus the separatist forces that were backed and trained by the Russian military and some mercenaries as well. But even then, that was incredibly bloody. This is an entirely separate level of violence and an entirely separate level of escalation. And then, yeah, that's it. This is appeasement. Ukraine is losing their sovereignty. This shouldn't happen today, yesterday, or ever again. No, this is worse than appeasement, because they did not approach this in any meaningful diplomatic capacity. That's the problem. They didn't actually fucking get to the table. The United States State Department did not actually get to the fucking table, have a conversation. They did not do that. Don't say they did. It's still Russia's fault, but they didn't even try appeasement. Okay? Obviously, it's still Russia's fault, like I've said, going in and further taking territory. Okay? But having said that, like I mentioned, no, like the only diplomatic efforts that were put together were by Macron independently, by the German Chancellor independently, never together, never like a conversation with Minsk II, and certainly not from the American side. Good thing 140,000 of us were watching Don the 2. HasanAbi totally got us prepared for this. Anyway. Putin says clashes between Russian and Ukrainian forces are inevitable. Russia denied talks to everybody while the whole UN addressed specifically Putin. Dude, having a UN Security Council get together and wag their fucking fingers is not what I'm talking about, dummy. What the fuck do you mean? Everyone has said, don't fucking invade Ukraine. I said, don't invade Ukraine. That's the same energy as like this conversation. Stop it. That's not what we're talking about. Exhausting every diplomatic option leading up to this is the one way to legitimately do this. We did not do that. That did not happen. Like a UN Security Council meeting doesn't mean anything. Oh yeah, don't do it. Vladimir Putin, you stop it now.
I'll give the floor to the representative of Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'd like to thank the Secretary General and Under Secretary General De Carlo for their very sobering.
Okay, I'm fucking muting Ireland. All right. To anyone who would consider interfering from the outside, if you do, you will face consequences greater than any you have ever faced in history. All relevant decisions have been taken. I hope you hear me. Only the readiness to fight is enough to support our sovereignty. Drawing a series of parallels, Chechnya, Crimea, Syria, Donbass, we simply haven't been given another option to defend our people other than the one we are forced to use today. People's Republic of Donbass has asked for our help. I have decided to launch a special military operation. We will seek to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. We do not intend to occupy Ukraine. Our policy is based on freedom, the freedom of choice of all people to choose their own course. To Ukrainians, Crimeans, and Donbassians decided in 2014 to return to their historical motherland. We could do nothing but support them. We have no choice but to defend them against the threats they face. The threats they face have been ongoing, okay? The difference in this situation is like, it's bullshit. I mean, the idea that there would be an escalation right now, literally right fucking now, with 200,000 troops on Ukrainian borders is psychotic. I'm sorry, I do not believe that, okay? I do not believe that, like, the Ukrainian government decided to actually take action, waited until there was 150,000 fucking troops at its borders with the entire world looking at fucking Ukraine. That's when they decided to do it. When during their fucking annual military training at their border where they're doing war games. Like, I don't think that that's when Ukraine decided to escalate tensions. Okay. I don't. I think it's bullshit. I think that this is just absolutely adopted American interventionist language. Oh yeah, this is like, by the way, remember, chatters, some of you probably have heard me talk about this before when I was referencing Xi Jinping's attitude against the Muslim separatist Uyghurs in Xinjiang and how he dealt with them. Okay? Bro, I literally, Austin goes, what you doing? I said, Russia is currently invading Ukraine. Austin goes, like right now, question mark, can I come over? My man said, can I come over? Incredible. Anyway, regardless. Ah, fuck. What an insane man. Okay. Okay. As I said before, the interesting parallels exist within the way that Russia and the way that even Chinese leaders speak about actions that they take against, like, you know, domestic policy, actions they take against, like, Muslims, actions they take against other countries, where they use, seems like airstrikes on Ukrainian territory has begun. Okay. This kind of language, like, we're liberating our people, we're saving our people from oppressive forces, is the type of language that America uses regularly. Like, we are democratizing imperialist force. And it's like, remember how I talked about how American, like, brain rot is exported? It's like our most significant cultural export is brain rot. We have made the entire planet more American and worse as a consequence of this. Where, like, I mean, technically, the civilizing colonialist is a very old trope. It's not a new one. The imperial forces are simply not destructive, but they're actually a civilizing force against these barbarians, right? That's like a normal old school thing, but America does it regularly. They use, like, liberal values as to why they're doing imperialism now. And that is precisely what is going on here as well, where they're like, hey, we got to denazify Ukraine. Are there Nazis in the fucking National Guard? Absolutely. Does it justify all out, full scale, fucking boots on the ground military warfare, explosions, and potential fucking potential fucking airplanes dropping bombs on civilian territory? Absolutely not. Okay? It's not. This is unjustifiable. This is horrible. Putin just declared war on Ukraine, announcing a special military operation, breaking massive explosion just now in Kramatorsk, at least for very big. Specific location mentioned with the airstrikes. Meanwhile, the fucking UN is circle jerking as they're...
Any further action that could contribute to a worsening of the situation. We call on all parties to exert greater efforts to bridge divergent interests. I would like to underline that the legitimate...
I know imperialism wasn't invented by the United States. The language they're using is optics, of course. Of course. It always has been. That's why I said the civilizing colonizer is an antiquated trope, but most recently used and most cleverly used by the liberal emancipatory language that the American imperialists use regularly has now been completely fucking adopted by China when they talk about their brutality against the Uyghur Muslims. They say, hey, we learned that from you. We learned this is a security risk. That's the reason why we need to fucking... What the fuck? Missiles in air? Like straight up missiles? Are they showing actual fucking missiles? Not showing anything. Anyway. The video of the shelling. I don't know, guys. I need real sources. I need real sources. Live stream of the rockets being launched. Oh, what the fuck? Oh shit. Oh shit. Yup. How are we watching a war live stream? Welcome to 2022. This is how it fucking works. Now, just you literally see. You can watch in real time explosions. CNN is claiming that there are bombs in Kiev, explosions in Kiev, according to what? Holy shit. A couple of words for those who would be tempted to intervene. Russia will respond immediately. Yeah, we talked about this already. He mentioned that, like, reporting live on CNN now that he's hearing explosions in Kiev, unclear what they are. Oh my God. Kramatorsk is in the northwest of Donetsk. Seems like Putin wants to occupy the whole region. I mean, if they're fucking blowing bombs in Kiev, it's done. Like, they're doing the entire... My colleague, M-Chan CNN, who's reporting live from Kiev, just jumped up in the middle of the speaking on air because he heard explosions behind him. He said tonight is the first time he's heard these kinds of noises. Massive explosions rocking Berdyansk city on Ukraine's Azov Sea coast. Holy fuck. All right, everybody who fucking talked about appeasement has to gear up. You're going to war, baby. I mean, this is a live cam in Kiev, but this is not a fucking angle where it makes any sort of sense whatsoever. I doubt they can easily occupy the entire territory, but maybe they're hoping Ukraine folds easy. CNN crews putting on body armor. I mean, yeah, if the fucking bombs are blowing up behind them, I mean, I don't know if the fucking body armor is going to help him.
Heard them since he has been in Kyiv. He is trying to put on a flak jacket now to make sure that he is safe. I think we should stick with this just to see what's happening as he is doing this.
Bro, this is crazy that, like, that's where...
In a moment, but this is where it appears there are things going on. Now, the president of Vladimir Putin moments ago saying that he was going to send a special military operation to protect Donbass, and then just minutes after that speech aired on state television, our Matthew Chance is doing a live shot for us here at 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock a.m. in Ukraine.
I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but there's blast near Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. That was what we were looking at, right? What we were actually seeing was fucking bombing happening in Kharkiv. Is it possible this is like fake shit? No, dude, this doesn't look fucking fake at all. This is like literally happening at this moment right in front of our fucking eyes. No, this is not. I mean, I don't think they're shelling Kiev. That would be fucking psychotic. But then again, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they are fucking psychotic. At most, I thought it'd be a fucking special operations in like the larger Donbass territories. Yes, you do. You just don't want to believe it. What do you mean? Yes, you do. You don't want to believe it. What are you talking about? I'm saying that, like, it's not fake news. This is real. This is very real. It's happening right now.
What those strikes are targeting, but our colleague Fred Piker, who is on the Russian side of the border, just about 30 miles away, has said that he has been hearing helicopters in the skies in near Belgrade.
Okay. Here is live on CNN Air, Matthew Chance hearing a loud explosion coming in.
Right here, behind resist. Oh, I tell you what, I just heard a big bang right here behind me. I thought we shouldn't have done the live shot here. There are big explosions taking place in Kiev right now. I can't see where they're taking place from this vantage point here on top of the roof of the hotel in central Kiev. And I can't explain what they are. but I heard 4 or 5 explosions a few moments ago. I don't know whether our viewers or whether you in the studio there could hear
We could hear it, Matthew.
what I just heard. You could resist. Oh.
I don't understand sending troops to DPR and LPR, but shelling Kiev is psychotic. There's no shot. I mean, dude, who knows? Okay, who fucking knows? At this point, I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Multiple Ukrainian cities, video streams, different vantage points in Ukrainian cities. Yeah, well, we've been looking at it.
We believe that the door to a peaceful solution to the Ukraine issue is not fully shut.
I mean, I feel like they're not, like, the UN people are, the UN is not even addressing it at all. China is speaking now. Let's hear what the fuck China has to say.
China's position on safeguarding the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all states has been consistent. The purposes and principles of the UN Charter should be jointly upheld. We hope that all parties concerned will stay cool-headed and rational, and commit themselves to enhance dialogue and consultation to resolve relevant issues properly through negotiations and address each other's legitimate security concerns in line with the principles of the UN Charter. It is especially important at the moment to avoid fueling tensions. China will continue to promote peace talks in its own ways and welcomes and encourages all efforts aimed at a diplomatic solution. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of China for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Brazil.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the Secretary General and the Undersecretary General, Rosemary DiCarlo, for the information and remarks they have put before the Council tonight. Mr. President, the reports received about the movement of troops into certain areas of Donetsk and Luhansk in Ukraine are cause for extreme concern. The threat or use of force against the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and political independence of a UN member state is unacceptable. In the present circumstances,
what a weird situation.
The Security Council must act according to its main purpose as holder
to watch
of the
like
primary
actual shelling and bombing
under the
occurring in
United
fucking
Nations
Ukraine
Charter for the
while these
maintenance
dudes are
of
like having a
international
formal
peace
conversation,
and security.
a formal discussion
In
about
the exercise of this
finger wagging against Vladimir Putin, when like obviously the last time you motherfuckers did this, it didn't work. Like negotiation or nothing. Like there's no, I don't know. I mean, the formalities are, I guess, something that you have to do. Listen, these are the consequences of liberalism. Yeah, I know. All right, let's hear what CNN has to say.
Any explosions?
Stop saying appeasement moment. They didn't even do appeasement. Russia moved too fucking quickly, dumbass. Shut the fuck up. Appeasement requires diplomacy. They didn't even do diplomacy. They did nothing. They just did like, oh, we're going to do sanctions. Please stop it. You don't even know what the fuck you don't even know what you're saying. Okay?
These seem like quite a distance away. You could hear them in the distance. Still in Kiev, obviously, it's a big city. And we've got this good panorama across the city here now. And it's not quite clear, and I've been speaking to our security advisors here, it's not clear what may have been targeted, but obviously this is the capital of Ukraine. The Defense Ministry is here, the Foreign Ministry building is right behind us here, government buildings, command and control centres are here. And of course, there are also units of the Ukrainian military on the outskirts of the Ukrainian capital as well, which are positioned, obviously, to defend the city from any kind of ground invasion. The reason I raise that is because one of the elements of the US intelligence has been passed on to the Ukrainians, according to the Ukrainian officials that I've spoken to, is that, the Russian attack, which has been, which was, talked about by this intelligence, which now seems to be sort of coming to fruition, involved not just airstrikes, but also an element of ground attack as well, ground skirmishes that was described to me, sort of both in
Holy
Kiev and in other
fuck.
cities as well. And so, look, I mean, we don't know. It's difficult to explain at this point, being so distant from where these things are happening. But clearly something is happening now, and that is very different from what was happening just a few minutes ago.
Simple, the
we've
CSGO
mentioned this
player,
already,
the
but
fucking
it is
legendary
remarkable
CSGO player, his
that
city
this
is being fucking shelled. Holy fucking shit. Russia bombed almost all military warehouses in key cities. Another explosion about to be heard on CNN. Keep tuned on it. Wait, oh, because it's delayed? Is that why?
now to have been launched. Any bloodshed for that would be on the hands of the Ukrainian government. Now, I haven't had any reaction yet from Ukrainian officials, but they will be watching this, and I will get reaction. But they've obviously condemned it already, or condemned the build-up of forces that have led to this, and have welcomed the sanctions that have been placed on Russia as a result of its recognition a couple of days ago of those rebel republics in the east of the country. And they've called for more sanctions to be placed on Russia, more tougher sanctions that they hope will deter Vladimir Putin from going any further. And I can only imagine, I could predict that those calls are going
He's
to
in
get
Katowice right now for attorney, but resides in Kiev.
As this continues. Another big explosion right there.
Do you have the...
Right there. I don't know whether you heard that. Where did that come from? Yeah, we're going to move to the other camera. We can move to the...
Yeah, oh yeah, we already... This is the explosion in Kharkiv that happened earlier today. Look at that top right corner. Look at that one more time. The new follower footage superimposed over the bombing. Yeah. Hundreds reportedly dead from that explosion. Wait, really? Odessa reports explosions downtown believed to be a munitions facility. So what? They're like targeting all of the strategic positions inside of civilian territory, where there are like, you know, they're blowing up their map of some of the Ukrainian Russian attacks being reported across Ukraine. So these are all the what? Like I guess military positions, I assume. Should I do my uni project to just get it for the nukes to fly? Dude, live. The MLRS systems deployed against Ukrainian positions. Isn't this sometimes fake? Bro, I was supposed to fucking order food. I totally forgot. God damn it. Holy shit. That's crazy. Don't play not verified. Yeah, Ukraine had isn't that posted a no fake news poster? Yeah, I think like some of those posters are not real news. Some of those posters are fake news. So I'll you know, be more clever about what's going on.
But nonetheless worth repeating. Ghana unreservedly stands by the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, a bona fide member of the United Nations, whose membership of this organization provides for her guarantees over her internationally recognized borders, the same borders with which she joined this organization. We aver that the current developments in the eastern regions of Ukraine would not lead to a strategic gain for any party.
These guys are gonna end it, dude. I
Encourage
promise. They're gonna
efforts
end
to
war,
address
bro.
both immediate and long-term interests.
They're gonna fucking end the
through
war, bro.
diplomacy
They're gonna do it. That's
and
they're
As
getting
called
to it,
for by the
okay?
preamble of the Charter, we remind all parties to practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. Finally, we take this opportunity to urge all member states to exercise restraints on the respective unsettled but accepted situations across the
You can
globe.
see it there on the map.
Okay, fuck this. All right, I'm moving on to American news coverage.
Signal that this operation
Shit sucks.
is a large one. We don't know if it's as large as U.S. authorities had feared, but it is certainly much larger than just simply entering the Donbass from the east. I should mention that we've also learned tonight that civilian flights over Ukraine have been restricted, particularly over northeastern Ukraine there. This is believed the restriction came after a warning from Russia to flights entering these areas that they do so at their own risk. We also know that a no-fly notice had been issued for the Kharkiv airport. That's the city just to the north of the Donbass, where I said they're hearing explosions as well at this hour. As I mentioned, the second largest city in Ukraine, after the Ukrainian military reported Russia may target Kharkiv in an attack. And in fact, tonight, these explosions would signal that, in fact, is the case. You heard Martha mention earlier that U.S. authorities had urged President Zelensky to leave Kyiv. But in addressing the Ukrainian people, he made it very clear that he was staying put, at least for now. James Longman, our foreign correspondent in Moscow, listening to Vladimir Putin these last couple of days, his address to the Russian people, making the case for moving in, declaring those two separatist regions independent. And James, Vladimir Putin coming back on television in Russia just tonight, declaring a special military operation now underway. And he told Ukrainians to lay down their arms.
That's right, David. And I think the choreography of this was really rather extraordinary. The timing of this message, just as the United Nations Security Council was meeting, and actually just as the gavel went down after the Russians stopped speaking, we heard those explosions in Kiev. They know how to send a message. This is about undermining international cooperation. That is what Vladimir Putin has sought to do for years. And he's done that because he wants to divide his enemies in order that he can carry out his objectives. And we heard in that statement he gave earlier today, that word denazification, a loaded comment there. Very similar to the words he's been using around what he believes to be happening down in the eastern part of Ukraine. This word genocide, he's used it time and time again. This is about appealing to his people, to say to them, this is not an offensive war, this is a defensive war. We are saving people in the Donbass. And he's warned off other foreign elements. He's saying to the rest of the world, don't come anywhere near us because we are in the process of saving the people of eastern Ukraine. Obviously, these comments bear no
defensive war,
relation
dude.
to what is
Totally.
actually happening in that country. But this was a message squarely.
This is not defensive in any meaningful capacity, chatters. Okay, straight the fuck up. Nothing about this is defensive. This is offensive. This isn't even like aggressively posturing. This isn't like fucking putting boots inside of Donbass. This isn't recognizing the territorial integrity of Russian regions that Russian separatists have fucking carved out. This is absolutely full-scale fucking invasion. Yeah, this is Kyle Rittenhousing Donbass, basically. Or not Donbass, sorry, Ukraine. Anyway, it's bullshit.
That he has been on in 2008, the war in Georgia, where again he sought to move the Russian military into an area that he had declared independent. The annexation of Crimea. This is part of Vladimir Putin's playbook. Is he the cold, calculated KGB former profiler, or is he a man bent on achieving his
like fucking,
true objective?
This isn't
which
Georgia.
Is to rebuild
I mean, no
the Russian
disrespect to
Empire?
Georgia, but
Could he
like
do
this
both
is
of those
crazy.
things? It was a very, very scary speech, David.
Just an extraordinary split screen playing out on the world stage. The reality that Vladimir Putin is trying to present to the Russian people versus what the West has signaled to the world for several
Biden
weeks
released
now
a statement.
about Vladimir Putin's plans in Ukraine. I should mention we're hearing sirens now going off in
Biden released a statement. President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring a catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring. The prayers of the entire world over the people of Ukraine tonight as they suffer an unprovoked and unjustified attack. Explosion and gunfire heard near Kiev Boryspil Airport. Okay, stop. No OSINT shit. No OSINT shit. Only legit sources, like verified sources. No OSINT shit, please. Motherfucker said thoughts and prayers. I can, dude. Biden thoughts and prayers, Ukraine, boys. Okay, that's it. We're good. We're good now. It's good. No World War III. I'll be monitoring the situation for the White House this evening and we'll continue. Dude, it's way past his bedtime. There's no shot. There's no fucking shot he monitors anything, dude. He's in his pajamas right now. He's like 700 years old. I'll be monitoring the situation for the White House this evening and will continue to get regular updates from my national security team. Tomorrow I will meet with my G7 counterparts in the morning. Yeah, okay, dude. Sure. Totally. I believe that. Monitoring in his jammies. Okay, Christ. Tomorrow, I will meet with my G7 counterparts in the morning and then speak to the American people to announce the further consequences the United States and our allies with partners will impose on Russia. Oh, fuck. Dude, there are 77 Ukrainians watching right now. Hey, listen, boys, I hope you're safe, okay? That's all I got for you. I don't know what else to say other than I hope, you know, I hope you're all right. Be safe.
I've been talking about this buildup, this massive buildup on three sides of Ukraine. What's not on the map are the 20 ships down here that are capable of an amphibious landing. We know that the Russians have over 400 Iskander surface-to-surface missiles arrayed around the country to cover 95% of this country. So the initial strikes that we think we're hearing right now, right out of the Russian playbook, would be cruise missiles to take out things like surface-to-air missile systems, air defense systems that the Ukrainians would have. That would clear the path for waves of bombers and attack aircraft to continue to hit things like power plants, command and control, internet command centers. So the whole idea here in these first hours will be to create confusion, to separate the government from its people, to separate the government from their military, and to create the confusion that they hope will allow them to begin a ground invasion. That's what's anticipated. Where that comes and when is the question, and it will probably take us hours to see what happens and what Mr. Putin's true goal is in a ground invasion.
Steve Ganyard with us, tracking the potential scenarios that we could watch play out in the coming hours. We're just learning that there's a statement coming in from the White House. Let's go back to Cecilia for that. Cecilia?
David, the president is saying that, of course, he is praying for the people of Ukraine tonight, but perhaps he is really pointing this directly at Vladimir Putin. President Putin, quote, has chosen a premeditated war that will bring a catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring, and the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way. The world will hold Russia accountable. David, he will be meeting with G7 allies in the morning. He says that he will be speaking to the American people to announce further consequences. And that, of course, is those sanctions, what the White House has been describing, some of the most severe sanctions ever levied. We expect to hear from the White House tomorrow. David.
Cecilia, thank you. Again, you're watching ABC News live coverage of what Russia is calling a special military operation, what U.S. authorities in the West will likely call an invasion, and a full-scale invasion was what they had been warning of all day, saying it was imminent given the intelligence on the ground. Vladimir Putin announcing that this military operation, claiming it's intended to protect civilians. But before we go off the air for now, I did want to check back in with Ian Pannell, our chief foreign correspondent there in Kiev. And Ian,
I don't know what the fuck's going on in
words,
Kiev, if there's bombs blowing up in Kiev or not. Like, they fucking made it seem like the bombs are blowing up in Kiev, but now I don't know.
This will be a war of choice, and it won't be bloodless.
What is that fucking noise?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's.
Is it just like people driving really fast?
It's a dark day for Europe. We're potentially now looking at the first conflict between two sovereign nation armies in Europe since the end of the Second World War. I think Ukrainians will start to wake up. They'll be hearing the news. They'll be hearing the explosions. Since we've been on air, we've heard at least 3 more distinct large explosions in the night sky here in Kiev. It's not possible to know exactly what's caused them or indeed what the targets are, but of course against the backdrop
Russian
of this
Spetsnaz is
effective
at Kiev
declaration of
airport.
war
Turkish
by
cargo
Vladimir
planes are in the
Putin,
same airport.
one would imagine that it could potentially be some kind of Russian airstrike, but it's a dark day for the country and people will wake in a climate of fear.
The sirens are like the fire department sirens. They're not like fucking bombing sirens.
Vladimir Putin declaring a special military operation, what the West is calling an invasion tonight of Ukraine. Putin warning other countries that any attempt to interfere with this Russian action would lead to, quote,
I don't think those were air raid sirens.
House, as you heard from Cecilia, already reacting tonight with prayers for the Ukrainian people and warning that there will be consequences for Vladimir Putin having taken this action tonight. We're going to continue to monitor these developments. We'll be back on the air as soon as there is something major that develops. Our coverage will continue at ABC News Live, abcnews.com. Again, Nightline later tonight, and Good Morning America first thing in the morning. I'm David Muir here in New York. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Wait, are they fucking done? What the fuck? That's crazy. You can't really be fucking ending the special report. What are you, wild? Are you wilding out, dude? Marco Rubio believes it's actually Spetsnaz, but how the fuck do we know? Russia is now working on establishing air superiority via targeted surgical strikes, a pincer movement to trap Ukrainian forces in the east and cut them off from Kiev. Finally attempted to decapitate Ukrainian government by targeting government buildings. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is still going.
Secretary General's statements and calls on parties to avail themselves of the good offices which the Secretary General has offered. The President of Mexico declared just this morning that we will not accept the invasion of one country by another, since it is against international law. We recall once again that Russia, a few days ago, in this very chamber, before the international community, made an emphatic declaration that it would not invade Ukraine.
Yeah, that was a fucking lie, dude. Well, the sun's coming up in Ukraine, so that's cool. Wait, oh, they're still doing coverage. They're not done. They're not ending it. I thought they were gonna end it. Bro, no shot, that's real. Breaking Russian VDV forces confirmed in control of Kiev's airport. Oh my fucking god. Dude, how the fuck did they take over like everything in Ukraine in literally a second, by the way? Pictures of the fire in Kharkiv. Yeah, we saw this before. President took the Taliban to retake Afghanistan. America gave up Afghanistan to the Taliban, and they couldn't fucking take over an entire country with like built military this fast. Like this is, I know I made fun of like people talking about fucking Hearts of Iron shit, but like this is literally Blitzkrieg Hearts of Iron shit. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I don't know. I don't know where this is going. I don't know if it's like full-blown this is a full-blown occupation of Ukraine. This is clearly not a fucking limited special operations exclusively with the goal of cutting off the Donbass region, like eastern Ukraine, Russian territories, or anything like that. This is a straight up fucking. Oh, is the Russian rep talking at the? Oh, let's hear what the fuck he has to
Repeating
say.
the Ukrainian fairy tales that those living in Donetsk are all but shelling themselves. It is no surprise that the increasing suffering of those living in the Donbass does not seem to affect our Western colleagues. Through the whole day of debate today at the General Assembly, you haven't been able to find one word of compassion or condolences. It is as if these 4 million people for you simply don't exist.
I mean, dude, come on, bro.
I would like to recall that the
That's
principle of
bullshit.
sovereignty
I
and
mean,
territorial
like,
equality of states.
yes, there is ongoing conflict and ongoing war, and a lot of fucking Russians have died there. But like, Jesus Christ, are you serious?
According to the Declaration on the Principles of International Law,
Motherfucker, you can't take over Kiev and the Kiev airport and be like, oh man, we're defending Donbass.
This should be fully complied with as regards states who, and I quote, conduct themselves in compliance with the
Absolute
principle
fucking insanity,
of equal
dude.
rights and self-determination of peoples, and thus possessed of a government representing the whole people without distinction of race, creed, or color, the whole people living in that territory. End of quote. Today's government in Ukraine simply is not that. And the tragedy in Ukraine started indeed after the illegal coup in Maidan in 2014, when, rather than dialogue with the Russian-speaking citizens of Ukraine, the new authorities brandished guns and airplanes at them. The information and testimony to this end is more than sufficient. However, our Western colleagues prefer not to notice this. We tried yesterday and today, before yesterday, to explain to you the logic of the decision made by Russia to recognize the LPR and DPR. And we focused on the need to ensure peace and security.
I'll be back. I have to pee.
There.
Fuck.
However, you didn't want to hear this, and you don't want to hear it now. For you, those living in the Donbass are simply pawns in a geopolitical game focused on weakening Russia and promoting the bloc from NATO to its borders. For us, these people are women, children, the elderly, who for 8 years have been cowering from Ukraine's shelling and provocations. For us, these are Ukraine people and not the Maidan authorities. In this is the difference in our approaches. If you do not change the geopolitical lens, you will never understand us. Then, on those on whose behalf this decision I mentioned was made, who you've not even thought about for over these 8 years, simply calling them pro-Russian separatists and terrorists. Those people are the most important for us. I'd like to say once again that the root of today's crisis around Ukraine is the actions of Ukraine itself, who for many years were sabotaging its obligations under the Minsk package of measures. Last week even, there was a hope that Kiev would rethink and nevertheless implement what it signed up to do in 2015. For this, first and foremost, they needed direct dialogue with Donetsk and Lugansk. However, further confirmation that Ukraine is not ready for this type of dialogue and steps to grant Donbass special status as set forth in the Minsk agreements, while with the support of this position from Western backers, finally convinced us that we simply cannot force those living in the Donbass to suffer more. Inasmuch as I already said, the Ukrainian provocation against those in Donbass not only has not stopped, but has intensified, the leaders of the LPR and the DPR turned to us with a request to provide military support in line with bilateral cooperation agreements as agreed at the same time as they were recognition. This is a logical step, which is a consequence of the actions of the Ukrainian regime. During this meeting, the president of Russia, Putin, spoke with and said that he made a decision for a special military operation in the Donbass. We don't know all the details today, but briefly I would like to inform you that from his statement it says that the occupation of Ukraine is not in our plans. The aim of this special operation is to protect the people
Trump
who
is on
for
Fox
over 8
News.
years have been suffering genocide from the Kiev regime. And for this, we will aim to demilitarize and de-genocide in Ukraine, and also
De-genocide.
And hold accountable those
De-genocide,
who carried out
more
so
like
many
just
crimes against
re-genocide.
civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation. This decision was made in line with
No, she just mistranslated. It's not a big deal. I mean,
and the sanction of the
he just meant denazify.
Fulfilling the agreement on and recognition of the LPR and DPR. We're receiving a lot of information, and we will analyze this, and we will keep you up to speed with this.
More map of some of the more Russian attacks.
Function as president of
Again,
the council.
this is not entirely fucking you know.
Of Ukraine.
What did he mic drop? What the fuck's going on, dude? Oh shit, Ukraine is speaking now. This guy, I mean, dude, his entire country is on fire.
Distinguished members of the Security Council, Secretary General, Undersecretary. Before I try to deliver parts of the statement that I came here with tonight, most of it is already useless since 10 p.m. New York time. I would like to cite...
Bro, the amount of people that are rushing to be like, your tweet did not fucking age well when I said this is the hill I will die on, even though I already have like fucking apologized and said I was wrong, is absolutely fucking insane. And shows once again, that 90% of the fucking internet exclusively cares about L's and W's on the internet and not anything about like the fucking safety and lives of Ukrainian
and
people.
In the judgment of the organization, are able and willing to carry out these obligations. Russia is not able to carry out any of the obligations.
You're so arrogant on this, you deserve the backlash? Shut
The
the fuck up,
ambassador of
bitch.
the Russian Federation,
again,
3 minutes ago, confirmed that his president declared a war on my country. So before I read parts of the statement, I would like to avail of the presence of the Secretary General and request the Secretary General to distribute among the members of the Security Council and the members of the General Assembly the legal memos by the Legal Council of the United Nations dated December 1991, and in particular the legal memo dated 19th of December 1991. The one that we've been trying to get out of the Secretariat for a very long time, and we were denied to get it. The Article 4, Paragraph 2 of the Charter reads, "The admission of any such state to membership in the United Nations will be affected by a decision of the General Assembly upon the recommendation of the Security Council." Mr. Secretary General, please instruct the Secretariat to distribute among the members of the Security Council and the members of the General Assembly a decision by the Security Council dated December 1991 that recommends that the Russian Federation can be a member of this organization,
Biden confirmed
as
by
well as a decision
Ukrainian officials
by
in
the General
Kiev,
Assembly
Kiev
dated
Airport.
December 1991,
Biden confirmed by
where
Ukrainian
General
officials
Assembly
in Kiev
welcomes
Airport.
the Russian Federation
Here.
to this
Missile
organization.
strikes.
It would be a miracle if the Secretariat is able to produce such decisions. There is nothing in the Charter of the United Nations about continuity as a sneaky way to get into the organization. So when I was coming here an hour ago or so, I was intending to ask the Russian ambassador to confirm on the record
Yes, Russia officially declared
that
war
the Russian
earlier today.
troops will not start firing at Ukrainians today and go ahead with the offensive. It became useless 48 minutes ago. Because about 48 minutes ago, your president declared the war on Ukraine. So now I would like to ask the ambassador of the Russian Federation to say on the record that at this very moment, your troops do not shell and bomb Ukrainian cities, that your troops do not move in the territory of Ukraine. You have a smartphone, you can call Lavrov right now. We can make a pause to let you go out and call him. If you are not in a position to give an affirmative answer. The Russian Federation ought to relinquish responsibilities of the President of the Security Council, pass these responsibilities on to a legitimate member of the Security Council, a member that is respectful of the Charter, and I ask the members of the Security Council to convene an emergency meeting immediately and consider all necessary draft decisions to stop the war. Because it's too late, my dear colleagues, to speak about de-escalation. Too late. The Russian president declared a war on the record. Should I play the video of your president? Ambassador, shall I do that right now, or you can confirm it? Do not interrupt me, please. Thank you.
Then don't ask me questions when you are speaking. Proceed with your statement.
Anyway, you declared the war. It is the responsibility of this body to stop the war. So I call on every one of you to do everything possible to stop the war. Or should I play the video with your president declaring the war? Thank you very much.
Опять я вынужден сказать.
Against, I must say that I thank the representative of Ukraine for his statement, and the questions, I wasn't planning to answer them because I've already said all I know at this point. Waking up
what the fuck's going on?
Minister Lavrov at this time is not something I plan to do. You said the information that we have will be something we provide. And this isn't called a war, this is called a special military operation in the Donbass. I now give the floor to the representative of Germany.
You think if the Ukrainian guy fights the Russian guy, that means they have to let go? They have to, you know, it's like trial by combat?
The President of the Russian Federation announced a military operation on Ukrainian territory. We condemn this in the strongest possible terms. And we call upon all members
Imagine
of the
being
Security
like,
Council
hey,
and the
I know we're
United
bombing your
Nations to
fucking
now stand
capital
up for
and like all of
Ukraine
your big cities, but
and
it's not a war.
Against a shameless breach of international law. 2 days ago, Russia's decision to recognize the self-proclaimed so-called People's Republics of Donetsk and Luhansk was harshly rejected in this council. It had already dealt a devastating blow to the principles and the international order that the United Nations stand for. Russia has not listened, and it turns out it was not prepared to listen. It has continued its massive military buildup, and we observed and observe cyber attacks directed against Ukraine, and now Russian military is moving into Ukrainian territory. By the actions and this unprovoked military operation, Russia is violating the core principles of the UN Charter. We condemn the use of force against innocent people and the violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine in the strongest possible terms. We urge Russia to terminate its military action against Ukraine immediately and withdraw its troops. Mr. President, our thoughts are with the Ukrainian people. We will be steadfast in our support for Ukraine and our support for the UN Charter. The Russian aggression will come at an unprecedented price, politically, economically, and morally.
It's just this.
Mr. President, France, Ukraine, and my country stood ready for diplomacy, for another meeting in the Normandy format, or for the summit that Ukraine had proposed. With our allies and partners, we called on Russia to seek a diplomatic way forward in vain. Now is the moment to speak up and defend the international order of the UN Charter against unilateral aggression, jointly and decisively. Tonight we stand with Ukraine, and we are doing so unwavering and determined. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Germany for her statement. And now I give the floor to the United States, who wish to make a further statement.
Thank you. In my remarks tonight, I said that we predicted Russia's false flag attacks. the misinformation, the theatrical.
Bro, America's literally like they're doing a fucking W tour. They're like, yo, we're gonna predict the misinformation to false flag. Dude, okay, solve it. Solve the problem.
Unfortunately, while we've been meeting in the Security
What the fuck are they gonna do? Are they gonna go in? Are they gonna fucking fight back? Are they gonna like actually fly planes into Ukraine? Are they gonna send in the 6,000 troops at the fucking border of Ukraine?
As we are gathered in the council seeking peace, Putin delivered a message of war in total disdain for the responsibility of this.
Non-believers like you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they got this one fucking. They got this one. Okay.
Will need to act.
At this point, if you are in a position of fucking power, you had every opportunity to fucking exhaust diplomacy. Instead of fucking endlessly being like, this is a war that's gonna happen. This is a war that's gonna happen. Okay, then fucking try to solve it.
This attack will bring. And the United States and our
They're doing ego shit, dude. It's like, you're not a fucking gray name on my Twitch chat. You're not like a fucking weirdo anime avatar on Twitter being like, dude, you were so wrong and I was so right. Who cares?
I thank the representative of the United States for her statement. I'd now like to give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom, who asked to make a further statement.
Thank you. As we sat in this chamber urging Russia to step back, President Putin announced special military operations on Ukrainian territory. This is unprovoked and unjustified.
Completely.
This is a grave day for Ukraine and for the principles of the United Nations. We and our partners have been clear that there will be consequences for Russia's actions. We fully support the United States' call for a UN Security Council resolution. This council must do all it can to stop the war and uphold the Charter. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom, and now I'll give the floor.
I mean, the conversations that they had
Albania,
about sanctions was way more significant and way more impactful than this. But obviously, the sanctions were seen as a fucking provocation and another reason to fucking further escalate. And it's
explosions are reported in Kiev and in several other cities. I
mean, like I said, it's just like fucking Georgia.
Mosques are finally down.
But this time, not even like a fucking real threat, but one that they have decided to drum up. One that they've decided to drum up against fucking Russian people living in Donbass.
The land, dignity, and life. We call on all the members of the United Nations to rally in support of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, to stand with Ukraine and its people, to condemn firmly and unequivocally this aggression.
What if all the diplomats jump the Russian diplomat? I don't think that's how it works. I don't know, but I don't think that's how it works. Okay, let's see if there's more here. I want to see if is this ended or not.
That the Russians will veto it.
Okay.
So that will then set the stage for another conversation in the General Assembly. In the General Assembly, which doesn't have the ability to actually do things, but it can say things. It will vote to condemn Russia, but it's not able to.
Bro, they literally took the L on the sanctions. They were like, fuck it, YOLO, sanction me.
Such an issue for Russian President Vladimir Putin?
It's a great question. It is a great question. Everyone knows, including Vladimir Putin, that Ukraine is not ready to join NATO today or tomorrow or even next year. So why he is invading to stop something that's not going to happen anytime soon?
What the fuck?
This makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's totally unjustified. There is no answer to your question. It's a good question, and there's no answer.
It's true.
Realistically here, what's the worst case scenario?
Worst case scenario is a massive invasion by these 200,000 or more troops that the Russians have massed around Ukraine. It will be a terrible, bloody fight. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians will be killed, military and civilian. Thousands of Russians will be killed, military. They will go back. Your reporter in Moscow raised the right question. Do the Russian people really support this massive invasion?
They don't. They
I doubt
don't.
it. In particular,
They don't. There's literal polling data on it. They do not. This is incredibly fucking unpopular. Okay? They don't. They straight up do not.
there is
So
very likely to
that, along with like 11 other fucking reasons as to why this was so hyper unlikely, and an ongoing like active fucking war, potential counterinsurgency that they have to deal with. I mean, a counterinsurgency warfare in their fucking doorstep. All of this made it so incredibly unlikely. It is a complete psychopathic fucking action that they did.
It is, Andrew. Now, what that war entails, that's the big question, and that's what we're having to piece together in these minutes as the opening salvos are fired. Just reading a report from our person on the ground in Moscow, something very interesting.
Complete
and let's
insanity,
think about
dude.
what Mr. Putin might be doing. So if we look at the map here, we know that Ukrainian intelligence today talked about that the city of Kharkiv, the second largest city in Ukraine, about 1.4 million people, was one of Russia's targets. They also said this little town down here called Kherson is the other target. So he said, why would those be the two? This is the port city that empties on to the Black Sea, controls all of this key economic waterway that Putin, if he held this, would be able to squeeze Ukraine in a way that he could essentially economically strangle the country. So if they attack here and if they attack here, the other thing we just heard was
so they're going to cut off the rest of the country from up to this fucking Dnieper River.
So if you draw a line here from Kharkiv to Dnipro, that would be the only thing that the Russian army would have to take. And then this waterway, the Dnieper River, forms a natural boundary. So now Putin could carve off essentially 1/3 of eastern Ukraine and be able to control the river and all of the exports that go down the river into the Black Sea. All of their domestic gas production is here, and this is one of the richest agricultural areas in the world. So if Putin's looking for a prize, Kharkiv, Dnipro, all the way
Putin has
down
launched
to
a full-scale
Kherson as
invasion
the,
of Ukraine. Peaceful
forces
Ukrainian
come up
cities are
from
under
Odessa,
strikes. This is a war
and
of
he
aggression.
owns
Ukraine
this
will
part
defend
of it.
itself and
Whether
will,
it
the
goes after
world
Kyiv itself,
can and must stop
we'll
Putin.
wait
The
and
time
see.
to act is
Only has
now.
about 30,000
I mean, they're not
troops up
going
here
to.
the
What the
north.
fuck is the world going to
That's
do? It's a
city of
nuclear
almost 4
power. It's
million
fucking
people
insane
if
that
you
they're
take
doing
in the
this.
suburbs. So that's a tough thing. But we do
Bro,
know.
like America did this with fucking Iraq, but even America would not do this with Mexico, okay? Like, Ukraine is still a developed nation. Ukraine is still a nation with like it ties to fucking European nations. Okay, Ukraine is literally a neighboring nation of Russia. This is fucking completely insane. Completely insane. Like, America rolls over developing nations on a daily basis and it's over fucking seas, and and it's disgusting. But there's a white supremacist attitude that a lot of people have towards that kind of conquest in the third world. This is like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's absolutely insane.
All those places where they had missiles that could take down your airplanes. Once the skies are clear, then they'll launch more surface-to-surface missiles that are very accurate, could go after critical infrastructure, power plants, things like that, equipment areas, military command and control. Now that you have the skies clear and you have initial air defense taken out, now you can bring in your bombers, you bring in your attack aircrafts, and you pound the Ukrainian army from the air with no ability to defend themselves. At some point, given all the array of military ground forces we see here, Mr. Putin will come in to Ukraine in some way with some intent. Again, don't know if he wants to go after Kyiv and bring down the government here, or whether he wants to carve off this eastern part of the country. Remember that this is the rebel-held area of Donbass, but this is not all of the Donbass. All of the Donbass goes way out here. The rebel-held area is only about 1/3 of the Donbass.
The Weekend posted,
if he
"Let's
said,
go."
I need to go in and retake the Donbass, he's got some
What
work
the
to do in
fuck?
here. But again, a line from Kharkiv to Dnipro down to Kherson would give him
What
that
the
1/3
fuck?
of the country, and maybe that's enough.
And Russia
Bro,
seems to have struck
what is
first
he
here.
doing?
So how can Ukraine respond? Are they prepared militarily to respond to a Russian invasion?
They are much improved. The U.S. and NATO countries have been working with them to improve their military since they were whipped.
I'm sorry to do this, but I got to run a
2000.
fucking top of the hour ad break. I forgot to run it last hour.
And in the Donbass. So they've gotten better.
No
The problem
Horizon
is
tonight.
The Russian military has also gotten much better. Over the
You already know what to do if you want to avoid those ads.
Put a lot of money into improving the Russian military in a way that makes them a very, very capable military, once again, in sort of reflecting that past glory of the Cold War. That means that the Ukrainians, even though they sort of match up man for man on the ground, it still means that the technological advantages that the Russian army, Russian military, Russian Air Force has really is going to be no match. So will Mr. Putin be able to take large parts of Ukraine? Yes, it may take weeks, it may take months, but eventually he'll be able to do that. What he will not be able to do is be able to hold that territory. You think about it, it takes about 3 to 1 in terms of the number of troops. So if he has 150, 170,000 troops around here, if he's going to even hold this much of Ukraine, he's going to need double or triple that, and he can't afford that. He goes into an election in 2 years from now and can't have body bags coming home from some bloody occupation like he saw in Chechnya. So it's probably going to be a get in, get out. I think we heard that tonight where he says he doesn't want to hold terrain, wants to teach the government a lesson. What that lesson is yet to be seen.
For the Ukrainians' defense, how does the mobilization of reservists help?
Because really what they're going to have to do is fight sort of a militia, an insurgency. So remember we saw insurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan that we had to fight. It's actually quite difficult because you have people who believe in the defense of their country, that they've been invaded by a country. They're very proud that the national spirit of Ukraine has grown since the independence in 1991 from Russia. So you have Russians invading and killing Ukrainians, and so what they're going to have to do after they eventually get overrun is to sort of go into the militias and fight a guerrilla war. And that ends up being very, very bloody, not only for the Ukrainians, but eventually for the Russians.
And Colonel, last question here. American troops are overseas right now. What kind of support could they provide Ukraine, and how will they engage?
Zero. It'll be President Biden has made it very clear that this is not our fight. So Ukraine is not a member of NATO. It's never going to be a member of NATO. Someday maybe it'll be a member of the EU. But it is not our fight. It's not NATO's fight. But it is still very, very concerning. If you think about it, Andrew, this part of the world has a really bad track record for small world wars turning into brush fires and world wars. So it's one of these things that needs to be watched.
We don't know Ukraine at all.
Historical overhang here that's quite scary.
Colonel Gander, thank you for that insight. And we'll be back after this break with more reporting from the ground in Ukraine and our team of analysts to break all of this down. Stay with us.
Listen, obviously fucking Russia is the #1 offender here. But America fucking cooked Ukraine, okay? Absolutely cooked them. No reason, no interest in fucking letting them join NATO. Just straight up fucking threw them under the bus. They were like, yep. Oh yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, we'll think about it. We'll consider it. And then absolutely, they were just like, now they're like, oh yeah, NATO, I don't know about that. Ground troops are crossing the border? What do you mean? As opposed to what? Ukrainian officials are now saying that the Russian troops are crossing the border towards Kharkiv. That's where we're at now. Paratroopers are assaulting the Kiev airport. Holy fucking shit. More booms in the distance. Reports that Russian paratroopers are assaulting Kiev airport. There's anti-air weaponry. Has a shot been fired from the fucking Ukrainian side? Like, I don't even understand. They just not even defending themselves? Like, what the fuck's happening? At this point, what is even happening? Like, they're just fucking letting it... I mean, I guess they have to be fighting back to some degree, but... what can you really fucking do? Cruise and ballistic missile strikes are targeting control centers in Kiev, reports Ukraine Operational Command. Oh, also, Donald Trump.
monitor.
Donald Trump went on Laura Ingraham.
Thank you. And joining me now is Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Glenn Greenwald. Glenn, we've heard a lot over the last year, just since Biden became president, of the rules-based international order. And the rules-based international order would keep the emerging nations in the world and those that were developed together to avoid unnecessary chaos. How are the rules-based international order folks thinking tonight, do you think?
Well, obviously. Bro, what the fuck? Okay, first of all, Glenn, much like myself, took a fucking L on how insane Russia was going to behave. Okay? I'm not going on Fox News anytime soon regardless, and they're not exactly big fans of myself, but there's one person who's like definitely, if there's one person who was also wrong on how aggressive Russia was going to be and what the fuck they were going to do, it's Glenn Greenwald. Your regular reminder that the U.S. isn't the only country with imperialist ambitions. Dude, you're talking to someone who already understands, recognizes, and has been talking about this for months. Your only comprehension of the situation at hand is from other fucking YouTubers who have like written essays or some shit, or your favorite person has told you that I was like wrong or whatever. If you ever watched any of my fucking videos or any of my streams, you would already know. Not only did I admit that I was wrong, but also routinely mentioned that it's still completely fucking unacceptable and completely unreasonable. It's reasonable for Ukrainians to be afraid of Russia, and it's completely unreasonable since day one for Russia to do anything. Okay? For Russia to go into Ukraine. And I also apologize for it. I'm not the center of the conversation, okay? If you try to make me the center of the conversation here, you're a fucking idiot. Ukraine is being bombed right now. It's a country with 44 million people. 44 million people. And the territorial sovereign power in its fucking backyard has decided to roll over them. Okay? Absolutely disastrous, absolutely awful and disastrous fucking situation at hand here. Okay? Let's watch Donald Trump talk to Laura Ingraham now for a brief moment before we return to the coverage. All right? All right, wait, hold on. First blast heard in Ukraine.
Eastern third of the country cut it off from the capital to prevent Ukrainian troops from falling back to defend it.
Let's go back to how this all started. It was a slow buildup to a possible attack. Were the Ukrainian people prepared for this?
Well, they had not necessarily been put on a war footing, but today a tone changed as President Zelensky started calling up reservists, 36,000 of them, to reinforce the Ukrainian military. He also got on the phone with world leaders, President Biden included in recent days, appealing for financial support and other support for the Ukrainian military. And the country's National Security Council called for a state of emergency, and that's to allow authorities to impose curfews or limit transport, do other things to try and get ahead of any threats that may arise. And that was a real signal that they thought something was coming. And then the Ukrainian military began to brief members of parliament, telling them that an invasion was coming and coming soon, and preparing them that it was going to be much bigger than the fighting that we've seen in this country for the last 8 years in eastern Ukraine.
And Aaron, you mentioned the calling up of reservists. How else has the country ensured that its people are going to be safe?
Well, they have certainly been well aware of the warnings from the United States and its European partners, Andrew. They know what the dire warnings have sort of built up. And although there's really been no outward sign of panic here, we know that in more recent days in talking
the other
to
thing
people,
is like it's not even just myself. It's like Ukrainians and the Ukrainian leadership didn't even think that this was going to happen because it was fucking insane.
here in Lviv, and the manager was telling me that he's had a good deal of interest in recent days, people coming in wanting to know about firearms for self-defense or to protect their families. We've also heard of Ukrainians taking up arms in preparation to fight the Russians, should it come to that. There's a good sense of patriotism here. It's a country of 40 million people, and they are not
this is going to
go
be
down without a fight. As President Zelensky had said, the Ukrainian people
I don't even
and
know
the
what the fuck
Ukrainian
is going to
military
happen
are
tomorrow.
ready for whatever Vladimir Putin may have in store.
And now that a Russian invasion
Earlier
appears to be
today,
underway, have
we
there
talked
been any
about
evacuations?
potentially increasing escalation and overtaking the rest of the Donbas region and potentially moving on to another separate strategic territory inside of Ukrainian borders in an effort to like neutralize the Donbas region.
In this conflict,
And
indeed, the busier
they've moved way beyond that.
the crossing with
They're
Poland seemed to be
overtaking the
other
Kiev
way, as
airport,
Ukrainians
like bombing strategic locations, Odessa, all these different parts of Ukraine being bombed at the same fucking time is way beyond what is even remotely acceptable, like, or way beyond anything that anyone who is sane would have expected, including fucking the Ukrainian president earlier today.
That it is not the aggressor that it has been portrayed in Russia in recent days. And he was hoping to sort of mobilize Russian support against what President Putin is doing, even though he undoubtedly knew it would fall on deaf ears.
And Ukraine's president made a plea for peace today, even saying that he tried to call Putin and was met with silence. How have the Ukrainian people reacted to their leadership in this trying time?
You know, I think there's been something of a rallying around Zelensky. He is the democratically elected leader, and although he's a political novice, having come from, you know, the world of entertainment, he's been doing all of the things a president can do. He's been urging calm, and indeed, we haven't seen any signs of anything but in the last more recent hours, he has started to make his people aware of perhaps what's to come.
I'm not joking. He was actually a clown, like professionally trained clown.
In the capital of Kyiv. Zelensky has been urged by the United States to leave the capital for his own safety, but we believe he is still there, although he has sent parliamentarians back to their constituencies to be with the people.
Aaron, thank you, and be safe. Now, there will no doubt be economic impacts from what's happening overseas tonight, globally and here in the United States. So we turn to ABC's Elizabeth Schulze for more. Elizabeth, there have already been sanctions announced. Has the White House indicated yet how they will respond to this particular escalation?
Well, Andrew, the White House has released a statement from President Biden that called this an unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine and vowing that the world will hold Russia accountable. So what that will look like is these severe economic penalties that they have been teeing up in case this type of invasion happens. We do know that so far the sanctions have been pretty targeted, focused on a few Russian banks, on the financial system, on oligarchs. This next round, the White House has said, will be coordinated again with its allies and could include broader measures, things like export controls, which would make it difficult for Russia to get access to critical technologies. They're talking about targeting bigger banks that could affect more Russian households, the broader Russian economy, and the possibility of personal sanctions on President Putin hasn't been completely ruled out. You know, ultimately, the attempt here is to show that we have a lot of measures that we can still take that will severely cripple the economy. The U.S. says it's prepared to do this with its allies, and President Biden is expected to make this announcement in a public address tomorrow, Andrew.
And how much could tonight's attack further rock the financial markets?
Well, if there's one thing the stock market doesn't
like,
what
are we going to do about the stocks, boys?
This is a big dose of it. We are already seeing stock market futures trade lower, and those losses have accelerated as the scope of this has become more clear. You know, one of the biggest questions for traders is how long is this going to last? And of course, we don't know that at this point. So a lot of traders tell me that you can expect very choppy and bumpy trading.
Large explosion
in the coming
seen near
days,
Ukraine's
maybe
Kharkiv after Putin declares war. We already watched this earlier today.
Some of those safe haven assets like gold, where a lot of investors go when times of uncertainty, are trading higher. And of course, oil prices are trading higher now in the wake of this announcement. That is one of the key things we're watching when it comes to the effect on the Russian economy and on the overall economy, too.
And this could have a real and immediate impact on Americans. We're already seeing a lot of pain at the pump. How high could gas and energy prices go from here? And are these price hikes expected to last?
This is the question. We are seeing, Andrew, already Brent crude oil prices close to $100 a barrel in the wake of this news tonight. That means that the price that you are going to pay at the gas pump could eventually go higher with crude oil prices going higher. So, remember, Russia is the third largest producer, exporter of crude oil in the world, the second largest exporter of natural gas. A lot of this is going to mean that European consumers pay higher prices at the pump or in their heating bills, especially if what Russia decides to do is retaliate in response to these sanctions that we expect to be announced by the U.S. and by its allies. If Russia then decides to pull back supply from the market to further disrupt the oil market, that could mean that there's more disruption for consumers here, and that could result in higher prices. We've already seen prices go up so much. Gas prices are up 20 cents for the national average gallon of gas here in the U.S., and a lot of analysts say you can expect to see $4 gallon of gas if we continue prices trending higher, Andrew.
And Elizabeth, is there anything the Biden administration can do to try to mitigate the economic fallout here in the U.S.?
I can't wait for fucking liberals to be like, Putin did this so Donald Trump could win the election again or some shit.
Bear some of the pain of these measures that we are imposing, and part of that is the cost.
Be on
of
the lookout for
democracy,
hot takes.
But on the other hand, inflation is already a problem here in the U.S. It's already pinching Americans. So they've tried to say we're making a coordinated effort, the U.S. with other countries around the world, to stock up on oil reserves in case Russia does decide to pull back, to stock up on natural gas reserves, to try to say we are prepared, we have enough ready to go to subvert some of the shocks that could be in place here in the market. At the same time, the U.S. isn't ruling out other options like releasing oil from its strategic petroleum reserve. This is something that it did earlier this year when we saw gas prices going up. How much of an effect that will have for the average person going to fill up at the tank, not very clear at this point. And ultimately, this is a global market. So when there are big shocks and big disruptions like this, it does trickle down to the consumer, you and me here at home. Andrew.
Elizabeth Schulze there in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Let's turn now to ABC News contributor and retired General Robert Abrams. General Abrams was an advisor to former U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel during the last invasion of Ukraine, and more recently was the head of U.S. forces in Korea. Thank you, General. Okay, so U.S. defense officials were expecting this invasion to come tonight under the cover of night. Why this timing? Why in the dark? And was this meant to be a surprise attack?
Well, I think the timing, there's a lot of factors on the timing, and you've touched on a couple of them. Historically and typically, military operations, we like to initiate them under the cover of darkness. The advantage goes to the attacker, and it's when it disrupts people's circadian rhythm. It's disruptive to people's sleep cycles, the Ukrainian military people's sleep cycles, and so forth. So striking
Thanks, man.
During the hours of darkness gives the advantage to the attacker. Why today, I think, is tied to several factors. I think the weather had something to do with it. Weather fairly good today across the country, not as good in the east. But as I've said a number of times, the weather factor swings in both directions. It may not have been ideal for the attacker, but it's not ideal for the defender either. And so I think that was probably a neutral state of play between the attacker and the defender. I think there's some symbolism on starting it today. This is the Russian Army Day of Remembrance. And I think there's a...
Bro, why did they bring him on, dude?
There to be able to initiate this defense.
I'll take Ukraine relied on the U.S. and Europe for help on the ground. Donbass decision
on the same day. So I think many of those things played into his decision to launch his attack today.
What do you expect the Russian military forces to do in the coming hours? It's just after 6 a.m. in Ukraine. What could morning look like?
We like to attack at nighttime because it's dark and it's harder to see.
Pay attention to what Putin said. What he
said, as you all know, when the sun goes down, it's dark and your eyesight is not as good. This is why we like to attack in the dark.
Denazify Ukraine. So I think we should kind of
it's
step
sleepy
back
time.
Away from the tactics of what we can expect to see. I think he's made a declarative statement
how the fuck
that
did
he
this, how is this guy general
destroy or completely disarm the Ukrainian military, and it will not be limited to one part of the country. When he says demilitarize, that means destroy or disarm their capability to defend themselves. And then on the denazification, I think that's not a veiled threat. That is a clear, unambiguous threat to the leadership, the elected governmental officials of Ukraine, that he intends to replace them.
Are you fucking stupid? That's not what he's saying. He's saying denazification because he's talking about like the Azov battalion, even Russian propaganda, if you believe it at face value, which is obviously not like everyone, but they're talking about like the fucking National Guard members who are literally a part of the fucking Nazi, and they're sympathizers potentially, but not like the entire country.
And let's go back to the aid for Ukraine. How much could the military assets provided by the U.S., like those Javelin missiles, help Ukraine in a conflict with a country like Russia?
Yo, they did not help.
So those, you know, the Javelin missiles and other arms and ammunition that are being provided by other NATO countries will be enormously helpful to the Ukrainian military. But as Steve pointed out earlier,
Not tonight.
The Ukrainian military is good. They're very good, and they're a lot better than they were in 2014. But unfortunately, size does matter, and numbers do matter when it comes to squaring these two countries up against each other. And Russia has a decisive advantage in a couple of areas. They have it in surface-to-surface missiles. They have it in combat aircraft.
Way more aircraft.
They have it in combat helicopters. And that is something that Ukraine just does not have, and it puts them at a military disadvantage. So I suspect and I fully expect that the Ukrainian military will put up a very stiff defense. But we're looking at some very tough days. The amount of firepower that Russia has aligned against the Ukrainian military right now is enormous. And I would expect us to see it completely unleashed here in the next 24 hours.
Some tough days ahead. General Abrams, thank you. Let's bring in former Homeland Security official and ABC News contributor Elizabeth Newman now. Today, Ukraine experienced some smaller scale cyber attacks, but Russia is capable of much larger cyber attacks. Talk about what those could look like.
Right. So today we initially saw some DDoS attacks, those are denial of service attacks, which think about not being able to access your bank or a government website where you need some information. It's disruptive, but it's not really of the size and scale that we expect. But then later this afternoon, we actually got word that some malware had been released. It's a data wipe malware, and it had infected, reports are up to hundreds of computers in Ukraine, and the damage that type of attack can cause could be significant depending on which places were targeted. And what some of the cyber experts are postulating, it's all pretty early to deduce everything, but they think that the DDoS attacks may have been launched to be able to distract from the other activities embedding this malware in networks. So it is very possible and likely that we will see more attacks kind of unfurl over the next few days, and with a particular focus on Ukraine. And the purpose of those is to try to cause more disruption, and in particular damage and disrupt the ability to communicate with the public, as well as to exercise command and control of the military and organizing your response as a government. So I would expect to see more of those. We might also see attacks on infrastructure, taking out the energy grid. They actually did this to Ukraine back in 2015, took out power for about 1 to 6 hours for about 230,000 people. And we know that Russia has pretty significant capabilities, so I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg at this point.
Bringing this full circle, there's serious concern about the prospect of cyber attacks right here in the United States by the Russian government. What is the likelihood that could actually happen?
I think it's pretty significant. You've seen DHS and the Department of Justice actively
These motherfuckers are gonna
try to
hack
raise
the
the alarm
Sony PlayStation
about
network
potential cyber attacks.
and Steam.
And they've been doing this for months. They've been
And
putting
stop
out
Elden Ring from
bulletins,
being
they've been holding
preloaded.
calls with state and local officials, with private businesses, with the banks, anybody that is an owner or operator of critical infrastructure with a particular focus on finance, communications, internet, energy, oil and gas. We are very concerned that those businesses and critical infrastructure are going to be targeted, may already be in the process of being targeted, because of course in the way that cyber warfare is conducted, you often try to infiltrate, plant viruses, plant malware that is quiet and silent, and then you activate it when you need it. So the battlefield has probably already been prepped, and they've been trying to alert everybody to be on the lookout for suspicious activity, shields up, as they say. But from an American citizen standpoint, what does this mean for us? It could mean that we see disruptions. You remember that we had the Colonial Pipeline attack. It was a ransomware attack, a little bit different than probably what we would see in this circumstance. But it didn't take much. It didn't take much to shut down that pipeline, and disruptions to gas supplies occurred pretty quickly. Prices went up, and then there were parts of the country where there were lines and people had to wait for the gas tank to come and fill up the station in order for them to fill up their cars.
Chowder's saying everyone uninstall
Tarkov.
Tarkov?
Are very plausible, and we saw Putin kind of threaten that tonight. I do wonder
Calm the fuck
if his
down.
threat to the U.S. and to the West, that we may, if we involve ourselves in some way, we might see attacks of the like that we haven't ever seen in our history before. That could be a reference to cyber warfare. We really have not seen the full scale of what it would look like for the United States and Russia to go head-to-head from a cyber perspective, because, of course, if they attack us, we have some offensive capability as well. We would likely retaliate. And where does that go? So the world's never seen that, and that is... that's a little disturbing. I think, I know that the people in the United States government that manage those capabilities are very mindful of the precedent that entering into cyber conflict may set, and the dangers that might pose.
We're just so owned.
We will see how Russia chooses to handle itself.
A lot more to monitor. ABC
I feel like
News
our
contributor
cybersecurity
Elizabeth Newman, thank you.
our cyber defenses
and now
are
we want to check back in with former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. Thank you for joining us again. Now, in a statement, the White House said that
our
the
cybersecurity
president
is
plans to deliver
awful.
remarks tomorrow announcing further consequences for Russia. What could those further consequences be?
Andrew, he could pull out all the stops, and he should pull out all the stops. This is a major violation
What does that mean?
of Ukrainian sovereignty, major violation of international law, major invasion of a sovereign nation, in violation of everything that has kept the peace for all this time. And we have been very clear. President Biden has been very clear. The allies have been very clear that if he does this, if President Putin does this, which he has now done, that we will throw all of these
Biden literally said he wouldn't send troops to Ukraine.
Export bans at him. And so I would imagine that we will see the maximum level of sanctions against top Russian banks, maybe SWIFT, maybe against the Russian central bank. This is a nuclear option in financial sanctions, is the Russian central bank. I would imagine, and I would hope, that all of these would be on the table. All of these not only on the table, would be implemented. Now is the time. President Putin has done what we said we didn't want him to do, and if he did, we were going to sanction him at the top level. At the top level, we should go to the top level of that escalation.
Now, I want to play you a dramatic moment, end of the UN Security Council meeting that just wrapped. It was a Ukrainian ambassador addressing his Russian counterpart. Take a listen.
There is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell, Ambassador.
What's your reaction to that?
He's absolutely right. This is
okay, bro. Bro, you're talking to the American ambassador, dog. If they, I mean, he's a war criminal too. Like,
will be enormous. Will be thousands, tens of thousands. Unprovoked attack on a nation a sovereign nation.
Where do you think he's going?
On Putin's border, killing thousands of civilians and military. This is a war crime. The ambassador is absolutely right. President Putin will go down with other war criminals, like in the past century, who ordered attacks on innocent people, who ordered attacks on nations on their borders. President Putin will go down with that club, with that group of people, that group of war criminals.
Now that we're here, this crisis has been building for weeks. Do you think the United States and NATO allies
people saying
did
like
enough
you,
in terms
but
of sanctions, in your opinion, beforehand to try and prevent what just happened here tonight?
American war criminals don't get that kind of attention or coverage. They get celebrated.
Took a lot of
Look at Henry
steps
Kissinger.
Before this happened.
Literal
And that was a
terrorist.
good thing. They moved a lot of troops. They moved a lot of units from the United States to Eastern Europe. They moved
Look
a
at
lot
Bush.
of U.S. forces from one part, from Germany, from
Obama.
parts of Europe into the eastern flank of NATO. Those were active steps, active deterrence. That was an attempt to deter President Putin from what he's done today. So that deterrence has now failed. And now we go into exacting the price. We said we were going to do this. We're going to exact a price for doing this on his economy, on him, on his industry. Now's the time to do that.
What could be the next move from NATO allies then if those sanctions did not deter Russia from invading?
So two things. One is to continue to provide and increase dramatically the assistance that now the Ukrainian military needs more than ever. The Ukrainian military is on its own. There are no NATO forces there to help them, to fight with them.
Bro, what is 6,000 NATO Andes going to do?
So they need support. They need equipment. They need ammunition. They need the basis of a resistance.
This is so bitch made.
And they are going to need then continued support to resist the Russians as they try to occupy. The Russians can get in. The Russians can get into Ukraine. There's no doubt about that. When they try to hold,
Dog, Russians are already actively shelling like strategic positions inside of Ukraine. They have boots on the ground, and this guy's like, "Oh, we're gonna give him guns. We'll give him more guns, dude. They have guns, bro. They have guns. There is literally nothing you can do in this situation. Either you go to all-out war, which is impossible because Russia is a nuclear power, and that would mean nuclear holocaust, or you have to fucking suck it the fuck up and get to the table with them and come to an agreement. But then again, I don't even fucking know. Or you just keep pumping Ukraine full of guns, okay? You keep pumping them full of guns, and then you give these like sanctions off to Russia with the hopes that it actually hurts them. You try to cut them off from their strategic partners, depending on whether or not, however that fucking Chinese relationship went with Xi Jinping before this entire thing unfolded. Because that could mean, they get at least some kind of material support from a superpower. I'm not being militarist. I don't want full-scale war. I don't want that at all. I've never wanted that, and I still don't want that. But this conflict does not get resolved without talking to Russia, without having Ukraine and Russia at the table and having a fucking conversation and trying to put together an agreement that is going to be incredibly favorable to Russia. But considering that we're not going to do that, because obviously we would never do that, don't be fucking crazy, that would mean taking a fucking L on the global scale, and that would be a significant problem for America's hegemonic power status. Then what you have to do is, or what America will probably end up doing, is just keep fucking funneling guns into Ukraine and let them fend for themselves, ultimately crippling Russia and also destroying Ukraine. Afghanistan 2.0, Afghanistan 2 Electric Boogaloo, but this time in Russia's doorstep. Live from Kiev? What is this? Holy fuck. Wait, is that like a commercial building? Hold up. What the fuck, dude? Look at this. It may be an in and out attack like they suggested earlier. They go in for the week, kill off some of them, and then hope for a surrender of some territories. They really made an edit out of this? Wait, edit out of what? What? Look. Bro, we need to send Zoomers the war. I'm sorry. I mean, look, I know a lot of you are watching right now. A lot of you Zoomers are watching, but like, you need to go to war, bro. I am officially changing my anti-war stance. I am pro-war now. I think we need to fucking. I need to send some of you motherfuckers to do some warring. Okay, this is crazy. If you're on TikTok, you go to war. Okay, if you've ever been like, if you've ever talked about, if you've ever talked about any kind of fucking like, oh, this is appeasement, Vladimir Putin's like Hitler, which by the way, Vladimir Putin is bad. Look at the sign. Actually, sorry, I forgot we elevated that to Vladimir Putin is very bad. From bad to very bad. Look at the sign. Then you have to go to war. You have to go do dance-offs on TikTok with Russians in war. Should I add another very? I can't add another very. Can you just keep looking for new footage and show us live cams? Yeah, I'm gonna do that. No offense, brother, but our age group wasn't any better. We're just old enough to know that what they're doing is cringe. Okay, let's finish this TikTok though. I told my mom Russia declared war about an hour ago, and she replied, "It's all propaganda." Okay. The other part of this is that, like, I think a lot of Russian paratroopers on TikTok. Wait, what? Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking insane? Yo, what the fuck? Okay, maybe I take it back. Zoomers, this is what happens when Zoomers are going to war. Never mind. Zoomer Russians are... Read the comments on the tweet. No shot did they film this. This video is 5 days old. If you look at this TikTok profile, oh, god damn it. What a fucking piece of shit. I mean, even though, you know, still insane. No way is that from tonight. Yeah. Zoomers out here are gonna do fucking TikToks like the cartel. Smoke rises in Kharkiv, the northeastern city of Ukraine. Russian troops crossing into the border into Kharkiv. Russian troops have landed in Odessa and are crossing the border in Kharkiv.
Emily in Washington, D.C. Obviously, the president fully informed about what's going on here. What's the latest?
Yeah, Ali, we've been getting periodic updates from White House officials throughout the night, and my colleague Peter Alexander just shares a significant development, I think. President Biden is actually on the phone right now with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, obviously an important consultation at this late hour in Washington, but in the very early hours there in Kyiv to show support for our ally at this very critical moment. Just before we learned of that, the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, tweeting that the president had just convened a secure phone call with his Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, as well as his National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. Earlier, they also had said he would be monitoring developments closely throughout the night and getting updates as they continue from Jake Sullivan. Now, the last we heard from the president directly was in the form of a paper statement released about an hour ago, which began by saying that the thoughts and prayers of the entire world were with the people of Ukraine. And then we heard in that statement from the president much of what we've been hearing from this president throughout the last few weeks, laying this entire conflict, this entire crisis squarely at the hands of President Putin, saying it is Putin who has chosen to make an unprovoked and unjustified attack, that this is Putin who is alone responsible for death and destruction that this attack will bring. And then Biden signaling how he will respond, saying that the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a decisive way. Now, what's next in terms of the president's schedule? We know tomorrow morning he is scheduled at 9 o'clock Eastern time to have a meeting, a virtual meeting with the leaders, fellow leaders of the G7.
No shot Israel's blocking U.S. transfer of Iron Dome missile defense systems to Ukraine. Oh my God, I did not fucking see this. Oh my Lord. I mean, Israel is aligned with Russia. System is jointly developed by U.S. and Israel, so Israel has every right to block, but it's a fully defensive system. Feels like a bigger story than Germany blocking Estonia, sending German-made weapons to Ukraine. We're wrong in everything. Dude, I already admitted that. Like, yeah, it's fucking insane. It was completely insane. If your number one fucking purpose is to be here gloating when people are potentially fucking dying, I don't know what to tell you.
Response based on how Putin proceeds. In the last 24 hours, really, at the White House, we've been hearing from White House officials this sense that, yes, everything that they're predicting has come true.
Like,
so
I already
far.
admitted and apologized.
At that moment, an imminent invasion of the kind that we now seem to be seeing unfold, that they were hoping that they were wrong. Clearly, they're not, but that they're now prepared to go even further in terms of the sanctions posture.
Worth noting that the G7 that you were talking about used to be the G8, because Russia used to be in it. And during the Trump administration, there were some efforts to get Russia back into the G8 by that administration. Mike, we'll keep in touch with you on this. I want to go to Ambassador Mike McFaul. Ambassador, I just want to point out to our viewers right now, for those watching markets, obviously they are tumbling around the world. Oil prices, Brent crude, which is not the crude oil that we use here in America, but that has topped $100 a barrel for the first time since 2014. Our crude, the U.S. light sweet crude, is on its way up there, around $97 a barrel. This is, of course, important because the one thing Russia has and the one cudgel that Russia has over its European neighbors is oil and gas.
I go back and forth between covering the market impact, because market impact is still significant, because that's the way that you're going to actually cripple Russia. You know what I mean? After this point, it'll turn into a war of attrition. Who else can fucking stand? Like, will Europe be able to fucking... will Europe not cave because of their over-reliance on... on Russian... on Russia for their energy? That's going to be a big problem. It's a bet that I assume Vladimir Putin is making as well. You cripple EU, yes, I will.
Years before it has any impact. But Ollie, I just want you to know, I travel to Ukraine a lot. I know hundreds of Ukrainians. I'm looking at 5 messages from different Ukrainians right now, fairly senior people that I'm not going to tell, I don't have their permission to report on. But I think it's important to know, I'm hearing from people that would be informed that all airports around Kiev and their communication systems are now being attacked. I'm hearing from
I think one of the craziest things is, like, look at Kiev. Like, it almost feels like the city is still, you know, they're just chilling. Like, shit blew the fuck up. I mean, I guess the Kiev airport is, like, kind of far out from the main part of the city. But it's kind of crazy that they're just like literally chilling. Like motherfuckers are going back to work and shit.
Is happening here. I think we're just in the early stages, and I think there's tragically going to be a lot more to come.
Yeah, and we're looking actually at a live picture of Kyiv right now, and you can't see any of that stuff. But to the point that you make, Ambassador, there is a way, there's a strategy. The White House has actually been pretty accurate all along about what the Russians were going to do.
Can you imagine being a fucking wage cuck working at like the Kiev McDonald's, and you have to like drive your little Vespa to work? Bombs fucking blew up. It's martial law, and you're just fucking wage cucking. Who's gonna walk in, dude? What are you gonna order a McDouble? Is that, you know? It's crazy. I'm just saying. It's like at least there's one day that you would, you know, you take off fucking work. Nazis getting fucked. This is also where the Azov Nazis are. To those uninformed, we determined Mariupol to be the hardest battle. Took under 1 hour. What? Mariupol pulls the Russian LPR, DPR forces. Russian commanders got the E2, bro. I lived in Iraq during the invasion in 2033. You mean 2003? Unless you're here from the future, chatter. I mean, what else is popping off? And that's exactly literally what we did. Dude, homie's from Iraq in the future.
They have air superiority.
What the fuck's America doing in Iraq in 2033, bro? Chill. Explain everything.
In Putin language, into his.
Do I still have hair? Am I balding in 2033? Do I have a wife? Am I still streaming on Twitch?
Understand that. Now, how he does it, how he thinks he's going to pull that off, I don't know what his plan is, but that is most certainly the objective that he has stated for this military operation.
It's 10 minutes to 7 a.m.
Still bald and
Kyiv,
still
and
single.
What we're showing on the left side
no
of the screen
kids.
now is a
I'm
highway,
miserable.
a major route in which people are leaving the city now. You can see that. You can see some sirens and lights, but you're now seeing remarkable traffic out of Kyiv. Ambassador, are you able to shed some light on this denazification stuff and why Vladimir Putin thinks that would be useful to talk about and who is susceptible to it? Because I remember in 2014, there was also an effort to undermine the opposition to the then pro-Russian government by saying that they're anti-Semites and they're Nazis. What's the provenance of this discussion?
Well, you're absolutely right. That's when he started using the phrase Nazis supported by NATO, right? The two N-words, as we called it back in 2014.
What?
And there is, you know,
what
to remember,
I'm sorry. What did you call them?
Some Ukrainians fighting on the Nazi side because they were occupied by the Soviet Union. Let's remember, you know, they considered themselves a colony, but a very small group. One should not, you know, exaggerate it. But he is pulling on that string, right? He's pulling on that thread from history to say that what you had was a neo-Nazi usurpation of power in 2014. That's what he said in his rambling speech from 2 days ago when he went on for an hour to explain and justify it. And he's appealing to Russians. He's trying to explain this to Russians. And, you know, again, you know, we've seen the polling, the majority support him, majority support these independent republics becoming independent countries. You know, there's some alleged reporting on polling on that, but a couple of things to remember. One, polling in authoritarian countries is hard to do. What incentive does anybody have to tell you what they really think? You know, when Ivan Ivanovich calls you up on the phone from Moscow and says, hey, you know, I'm doing polling here. What do you think of Putin? What do you think of this operation?
This is my favorite thing. This is my favorite thing that people say. They say polling is unreliable because people are fearful that it might be the government killing you.
Russians every single day. I don't see any enthusiasm for this war. Like, why are we attacking them? He tells us we're from the same nation, but we're attacking these Nazis. And the Nazi leader, allegedly, is this guy Zelensky. And I want to remind everybody, Zelensky's first language was Russian. You know, we had a long conversation.
He's going to say Zelensky's Jewish, which he is. And he's not talking. Zelensky is not a fucking Nazi.
He's a very popular television personality in Russia. Okay? And so when he, you know,
damn, he didn't mention him actually. He didn't mention that he was Jewish.
And say he's a Nazi, and that's why I think Putin needs this.
Okay, Zelensky's not a fucking Nazi at all. He's a lib. Like he's just like a centrist neoliberal guy. Okay.
Not for us, but for his own people back home.
But if the goal is to cause people to fear what was an expansionist Germany in the late 30s, the interesting part about this, which I heard you bringing up earlier this evening, is it was September 1st, 1939, that under the guise of protecting Germans in Poland, Hitler invaded, and that started World War II.
It did, and by the way, 2 weeks later, Moscow invaded Poland too. So that people need to remember that small fact about 1939.
Bro, I love Americans, dude. It's like they gotta take one shot at the fucking. They gotta take a shot at the USSR anytime.
Matt, what's going on?
Hey, Ali, we are hearing some shelling right now in the background. We're trying. It's actually behind the camera. We're trying to kind of figure out where it is.
I can hear it.
I'm not sure if you can hear it. It still sounds pretty distant.
Draft the unvaccinated?
But it's ongoing.
What
again,
the fuck? Yo,
Ali,
liberals have lost their
this
minds.
city, you just don't get the same impression as my colleague Eric McLaughlin was saying. You don't get the same impression that people are fleeing. We're starting to see public transportation working. It's dawn here. Taxis are circulating in the streets. But we are still hearing the distant sound of shelling. This place is a little different. This is eastern Ukraine. People here are a little more ready for war. They're expecting this to happen. And they are Russian speakers. They may have the belief that Vladimir Putin's military won't come in here
what's this
and attack
about?
civilians. Because...
Oh, what's this about, dude? In the 24 hours after Putin recognized 2 breakaway Ukrainian republics, the U.S. and its allies bought $700 million in Russian oil, gas, commodities. Do you want to know what this is about? It's about gearing up for the ongoing fucking sanctions against Russia, so they're at least stocked the fuck up. Isn't that wonderful, dude? Yo, Ukrainians got so fucked. I'm sorry, dude. Holy shit. I love war in 2022. They're just like straight up. I mean, I guess Coca-Cola kept making fucking Coca-Cola for Germany during Nazi Germany, or at least that's how Fanta was born, right? Capitalist corporations and businesses are going to keep fucking doing business. Oh, people are saying that the war was declared earlier, like... anyway, let's...
From the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Defense, because we are right over the border from Belgorod. And this is a place where we've already started to see a lot of hardware mustering and a lot of troops mustering. Some of the big items like Sukhoi jets, attack helicopters, battle tanks, and self-propelled howitzers. These things, we're expecting them to come over the border. We did hear one report that we're starting to hear troops coming over the border.
Ukraine is not part of NATO. Why are you saying Ukraine is part of NATO? That's not a real thing.
But we still need more information. There's a lot of uncertainty. And
this literally is the reason why Ukraine is not a part of NATO.
All right, Matt, stand by. And of course, if you hear anything or see anything, wave your hand and we'll put you right back on. I want to go to Keir Simmons, who's got new reporting in Moscow and Vladimir Putin's decision to begin this incursion. Keir?
That's right, Ali. Well, we've just been speaking to a former Russian official with very close ties to the Kremlin.
Motherfuckers be like, Ukraine is not yet a part of NATO. You think NATO is going to want to fucking add Ukraine into NATO while it's currently being invaded by the one country that NATO is built against?
Elements to this that we will hear in the hours ahead that will turn out not to be true. Others.
Half of the fucking reason why this invasion happened is because of invasions like this, you can't have a country like Ukraine in NATO. Because Article 5 would dictate that it would be a fucking world war. We're waiting on, Ukraine's Interior Ministry has said there have already been hundreds of casualties. Oh, fuck.
Our contact at the Interior
Ministry,
an Interior Ministry official, saying that across the country, as a result of these attacks, there are hundreds of casualties. Now, we don't know how many of those people are dead, how many are injured, or whether that figure is accurate. But we do know that the Interior Ministry of Ukraine is putting the number of casualties so far in this nationwide assault, missile assault.
We don't know yet. We don't know yet.
In the hundreds, which is, you know,
it might not be as bad. It might not be as bad yet. These are okay. Even if it's Ukrainian Interior Ministry numbers, don't know yet. It might not be as bad. I hope it's not as bad. Okay. Yes, they already declared martial law. Civilian or combatants, we don't know. Okay. I would bet that it's about thousands of deaths at this point due to 7+ Ukrainian cities reporting explosions. I mean, my hope in a weird way is I hope that it's just military positions. So it's like limited, and all of the cities had targeted, limited. Wait, what? Daily dose. Watching my cousin in Belarus says that the news media outlets in Belarus are saying that no invasion has happened yet. What the fuck? Is that true? Is Belarusian news, like Belarus news, actually fucking saying there's no invasion going on? Dude, they are such simps for Russia. Holy fuck, dude. I mean, I believe it, for the record. I believe Belarus would lie to, like the state media would lie to the fucking people. The Russian military says it has targeted Ukrainian air bases and other military assets, but hasn't targeted populated areas. That building that we saw that blew up, that didn't seem like a military target. That's why I was surprised. But they're bigger dick riders than Prod by Zach. Oh my God, dude. What a fucking reference. But that's true. Yes. Prod by Zach would ride Kanye's dick until it evaporated, and the Belarus is a puppet state for Russia. As hard as Prod by Zach. I can't believe what a fucking hyper-specific reference.
And he said, yes, that's how it's going. That's not surprising. We know that President Putin makes all the decisions. In the end, he will have had advice from that small clique around him.
You are now media attack discourse.
He's the decision maker. And another element of his televised address, which again, just to reiterate, many Russians.
Person block me? Are they fucking shit talking from behind a block?
Just seeing now. Another element from that televised address, which is chilling, frankly, is that President Putin refers to Russia's nuclear capability and clearly openly threatens Western leaders. So he says, even after the collapse of the USSR, the loss of a significant part of its nuclear potential, Russia is today one of the most powerful nuclear powers. And he says, no one should, then I think this is...
Bro, this is, I assume this is the people leaving the fucking city.
In this regard, no one should have any doubt that a direct attack on Russia will lead to defeats and dire consequences for a potential aggressor. So I just will say, Ali, just before this all began, we did hear from French diplomats.
Don't ever do that.
Real questions about President Putin's
chatter. Don't ever send that.
President Putin's state.
Don't ever send shit like that.
The man that they met was different from the past.
Don't send shit like that, chatter. That's probably misinformation. Don't do that. Don't send stuff like that. One of the worst things that happens, listen, one of the worst things that happens in situations like this, obviously, other than like fucking literal people dying, human casualties, all of that, from a media standpoint, is whenever shit like this pops off, people routinely try to lie and spread misinformation. And usually, unless it's like literally January 6th, or unless it's like this, one of the main points of my media literacy for all of you is to look for verified sources. Either it's journalists that you already know are on the ground, journalists from, mainstream media, sources like that. Always have to fucking, you always have to go with verified sources, because a lot of people are just like trying to get as much clout as possible, so they just like write fake shit out, put fake shit out there. Like, this could even be, like this, I don't know what the fuck this is, but Russian cruise missile flying by a house on the Ukrainian border. Like, this could be an old ass fucking video. You know what I mean? Usually, like, people will post old videos, shit like that.
They have sent the activity that they've got going on.
Bro, homie is
underway.
walking
We
his
have,
dogs,
A
dude.
few things going on that we should tell you about. Airspace has been closed.
Are you
All
serious?
civilian now closed. We have heard some reporting that the bombs that we're hearing drop in and around Kiev may be missiles. Someone in the Ukrainian government had posted that to a social media site. We've not been able to confirm that. As Keir said, these are the moments in which we are in the fog of war. We're not entirely sure what's true or not, but our reporters have heard explosions with their own ears. There are reports, Courtney Kube had suggested that the U.S. intelligence had heard that we would start with Russian shelling, perhaps, of military installations.
Bro, at that point, I let the dog shit inside, okay? I'm just saying. I let the dog shit inside and pee inside. What the fuck?
The area around the airport in Kyiv that is being shelled. I want to go to our two reporters in the region. Richard Engel is in Mariupol, Ukraine, southeastern Ukraine. Aaron McLaughlin is in Kyiv. Aaron, last we left you a few moments ago, you were hearing fairly constant